project for Anthropology 1020. I will be doing a tier ranking of different early primate species, or if they're not as great. Basically, the way this works is S is at the top, so it means the best, and then all the way down to D, which would be the worst. Is how it's placed here. So I have about a list of roughly 20 different species, and so I'm going to try and spend about 2 to 3 minutes talking. Sahelanthropus chendicis. Sorry, my pronunciation isn't great. I even tried watching videos on how to do it, but now that I'm recording it, I can't remember how to pronounce a lot of these names, but I'll try my best. So they were discovered in 2001. They lived in Chad, Africa, and like features included a small brain, a sloping face, very prominent brow ridge, and elongated skull. Their human features included a small canine teeth, a short middle part of the face, a spinal cord opening underneath the skull instead of towards the back, as seen in non-bipedal apes. So this is one of the oldest known species in the human family tree, and it survived in pretty diverse habitats. But because it was so old and it still wasn't bipedal. I'm gonna put this probably in. I'm gonna go C, just because I don't know. I think it's pretty average, but not like middle of the pack average. So yeah, that's my ranking for Sahelanthropus chendicinus. So next up we got Oronin. Sorry, another difficult pronunciation here. Orin to Genesis. So they were discovered in 2001. Their nickname is actually the Millennium Man, just because they survived for so long. Lived some time between 6.2 and 5.8 million years ago, in eastern Africa, around Kenya, central Kenya. So yeah, they're one of they're the oldest early humans on our family tree. Um, right after that, Sahelanthropus chatus. So individuals of this species were approximately the size of a chimpanzee and had small teeth with thick enamel, similar to modern humans. The most important fossil of the species is an upper femur showing evidence of a bone buildup typical of a biped. So Oryntogynous individuals climbed trees, but also probably walked upright with two legs on the ground. So just that fact alone, that they were biped, and that they were one of the earliest. I think that's pretty a unique trait for that early of a species. So I'm gonna go ahead and put them in A. I think they have had enough powerful, not powerful features, but like important features that like were important for evolution. So I think they're a good species. Next up we got Ardipithecus cataba. So this species is from eastern Africa and near Ethiopia. They were discovered in 1997, between 5.8 and 5.2 million years ago. So I'm not totally sure, but I'm pretty sure with the way I have this set up is that it's pretty much going in an order of a timeline. Each of these species. Anyway, so the species Ardipithecus cadava was a bipedal, walked upright, so that's a big plus. Probably similar in body and brain size to a modern chimpanzee, and had canines that resembled those in later hominins, but that still project beyond the tooth row. These early human species is only known in fossil record by a few postcranial bones and sets of teeth. One bone from the large toe has a broad, robust appearance, suggesting that it is that use bipedal push-off. So I don't, I think this one's pretty similar to the Oronin tungenesis, um, but I think because they only lived for about zero point 0.6 years, or sorry, 0.6 million years, compared to Oronins, what's that? Yeah. So I don't know. I think this is a good species, but it's still pretty okay. I'm gonna go ahead and put Ardipithecus cadava in B tier. Let's see. Next up, we got uh, Ardipithecus ramidus. So this guy's nickname is Ardi. Discovered in 1994 in Eastern Africa near Ethiopia once again, and Ghana. They lived about 4.4 million years ago. And the Ardipithecus aramidus was the first reported in 1994. In 2009, scientists announced a partial skeleton nicknamed Ardi. The foot bones in the skeleton indicate a divergent large toe combined with a rigid foot. It's still unclear what this means concerning bipedal behavior. The pelvis reconstructed from the crushed specimen is said to show adaptations that combine tree climbing and bipedal activity. So that's a pretty cool trait that they we're both climbing trees and making and walking on two feet. The discoverers argued that Ardi skeleton reflects a human African ape, common ancestors that was not chimpanzee-like. A good sample of a canine teeth of the species indicates very little differences between in size differences between males and females. So this one has a lot like I mentioned that the fact that they could walk, they're bipedal, they're combined bipedal, and also combined with a tree climbing skill. I think that's a pretty impressive thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this guy in B right there with my last one. Um, so on to the next one, we got uh, Astropithecus, Australopithecus, anamensis. Sorry, once again about this pronunciation. It's pretty embarrassing. They were discovered in 1995 in Eastern Africa. Um, yeah, they lived about 4.2 to 3.8 million years ago. So they have a combination of traits found in both apes and humans, which is always a plus because I mean this is I'm kind of going in terms of if they're on track to being closer to like a human, like what a modern day human being, those traits. So like which what they did to really help their us, I guess, like to grow and evolve. So yeah, it's possible they have both ape and human features this long ago. The upper end of the tibia shows an expanded area of bone and human-like orientation of the ankle joint, indicative of a regular bipedal walking. Um, so that's a good trait to have. Long forearms and features of wrist bones suggest these individuals probably climb trees as well. The cranium combines some more ancestral features such as a protruding face and a long, narrow brain case with some more derived features, such as forwardly projecting cheekbones similar to Paranthropus. So, like I said, I like that it has both human and ape-like traits, being bipedal, but still be able to climb trees, almost like the last one. Um, I like the fact that they had the long forearms. That seems like it was a big deal, as well as the wrist bones. Um, so I'm gonna go ahead and put Onamensis probably in B once again. I'm Yeah, I think it's a pretty good species, but I don't think it's top tier. So on to the next one, we got Australopithecus afarensis. The species was discovered in 1974. This is actually Lucy's species. So one of the more prominent one of the species that has been discovered for in anthropology. They live in around Ethiopia, Kenya, and Tanzania around 3.85 and 2.95 million years ago. So pretty close. Afarensis, sorry, had both ape and human characteristics. Members of the species had ape-like face proportions, basically means a flat nose and strongly projecting lower jaw, and a brain case with a small brain, less than 500 cubic centimeters. So pretty small brain, but it's still a pretty early species. About one third of the size of a modern human brain. So yeah, not great, but This is Lucy we're talking about. Long, strong arms with curved fingers adapting for climbing trees. They also had small canine teeth like all other early humans, and a body that stood on two legs and regularly walked upright. Their adaptations for living both in trees and on the ground helped them survive for almost a million years as climate and environments changed. So obviously, I think this is our first S tier species. I mean, like Lucy is one of the most prominent species when it comes to anthropology. Um, Definitely a big topic, and just the fact that um, I mean they survived for almost a million years, and like the characteristics I just listed off, they're just top tier. That's why I got Lucy in tier S. Or sorry, not Lucy, but Australopithecus afarensis. All right, on to the next one. We got Kenyanthropus platops. So this species was discovered in 1999, uh, believed to live in eastern Africa near Kenya about 3.5 million years ago. Very little is known about this species, actually. A flat-faced, small-brained, bipedal species living about 3.5 million years ago, like I said. Um, it inhabited Africa at the same time as Lucy species did, and could be representative of a closer branch to modern humans than Lucy on the evolutionary tree. Before this discovery of the only known skull of the species in 1999, the earliest fossil evidence known for the flat-faced early human, a significant shift in skull structure was about 2 million years ago. So the fact that they had that it took longer to find this species, the flat-faced skull structure, um, but it's interesting that they were discovered later, but they lived much longer than the first evidence of the flat-faced early human. So there's not much to this one. I mean, it's close to Lucy. There's just nothing really. Reading up on it, there just wasn't really anything special about this one. So I'm gonna give that our first D ranking. Just didn't like it personally. But there's better species out there. Next up, we got Australopithecus africanus, discovered in 1924, so really almost 100 years ago. It's pretty interesting. They were discovered in South Africa were estimated to live around 3.3 to 2.1 million years ago, so almost a whole million years, which is pretty impressive alone by itself. So Africanus was anatomically similar to Afarensis, with a combination of human-like and ape-like features, so a lot like most of the species on here. Had a rounder cranium, housing a larger brain and smaller teeth, but had some ape-like features, including relatively long arms and strongly sloping face that juts out from underneath the brain case and with a pronounced jaw. The pelvis and femur and foot bones indicate that it was walked bipedally, but it had shoulder and hand bones, indicated they were also adapted for climbing trees. So another pretty impressive species right here, Africanus is. Um, Housing a larger brain means you're on the right track to really um, evolving, I guess. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in A. I'm gonna give this an S because in terms of the skills that it had and the adaptations it had. So yeah, this is a pretty solid species right here. Next up, we have Australopithecus gari. This was discovered in 1990. Um, Lived in eastern Africa near Ethiopia about 2.5 million years ago. This species is not well documented. However, it's defined on the basis of one fossil cranium and four other skull fragments, although a partial skeleton found nearby from about the same layer is usually included as a part of the Australopithecus gari sample. The associated fragmentary skeleton indicates a longer femur compared to other Australopithecus specimens like Lucy, even though long, powerful arms were maintained. This suggests change towards longer strides during bipedal walking. So those longer strides, I'd say that's a pretty big deal in terms of um, just being able to like take those. I mean, like growing the legs that we have today. I think this is a pretty good species. You know, anytime you're up there in the conversation with with Lucy, you're probably doing something good. So I'm gonna go ahead and put Australopithecus gari in the A tier. Um, yeah, I think it's a pretty solid species. Up next, we got Australopithecus sediba, I believe is how it's pronounced. Just a little funny note. This I don't know if you can see it very well, but this picture that I found while researching these different species got a kick out of me. I mean, it's a funny looking. He's got a funny look. I know it's an animated photo, but he's got a funny little grin on him. He looks like he just got in trouble, or I don't know. Sorry, sidetrack, but it's a funny picture. Anyways, so they were discovered in 2008, and they're believed to live in South Africa between 1.977 and 1.98 million years ago. Suggests that Sediba walked upright on a regular basis, which is cool. Yeah, I mean, regular. If you're walking, that's like getting pretty close to getting to early humans. So, um, and that changes, and so that had changes in the pelvis occurred before other changes in the body that are found in later specimens of Homo. The Australopithecus sediba skull has several derived features, such as a relatively small premolars and molars, and facial features that are more similar to those in Homo. However, despite these changes in the pelvis and skull, other parts of sediba skeleton shows a similar body to that of an Australopithecus. Sorry, I actually have no idea how to pronounce this word, but it's just another species with long upper limbs and a small cranial capacity. The fossils also show that changes in this pelvis and detention occurred before changes in the limb proportions or cranial capacity. Um, so it's cool that it walked upright on a regular basis. But other than that, like I feel like it has a smaller brain capacity. So really, like nothing too special. I'm gonna go ahead and put Sadiba in B, right there with these other three. Um, like I said, I love the picture of them, but sometimes, I mean, if you're not putting up the numbers or proving why you should be a better species, a funny picture isn't gonna do it. So yeah, that's my ranking for Anthropology Sadiba. Up next, we got Paranthropus Ethiopicus. They lived in eastern Africa, near northern Kenya and southern Ethiopia, about 2.7 to 2.3 million years ago. Paranthropus Ethiopicus is still much of a mystery to paleoanthropologists, as very few remains of the species have been found. The discovery of the 2.5 million year old black skull in 1985 helped define the species as the earliest known robust um, like early species. As a strongly protruding face, large megadont teeth, a powerful jaw, and a well-developed sagittal crest on the top of the skull, indicating a huge chewing muscles with a strong emphasis on the muscles that connected toward the back of the crest and created strong chewing forces on the front teeth. Um, so wow, this is pretty interesting. I mean, this is the first one that's really gotten really in depth about its jaw and its chewing power. So pretty cool. I mean, megadont just sounds like large megadont teeth just sounds pretty intense. So I'm gonna go ahead and put Ethiopicus up there in A. I think he's pretty good spot. Pretty respectable spot. Um, Big teeth. Sounds like it can really chew into anything it needed to get that diet that it needed. Alrighty. So we got about well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about nine more species to go through. So yeah, right now I think this tier list is looking pretty good. It's a good showing that there's only been two that are even below B. So I guess it also goes to show that most of these species are all pretty like similar in terms of, I mean, even how like you can see it in these images, they all look pretty much the same. Uh, but I mean, there's things that uh, set them apart, and there's things that make them superior, I guess, to other species. So next up, we got Paranthropus boisei, um, discovered in 1959 and lived in Eastern Europe, in Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, sorry, and Malawi, um, about 2.3 to 1.2 million years ago. So almost another million years. Pretty impressive to live that long. Like other members of the Paranthropus genus, Boisei is characterized by specialized skull with adaptations for heavy chewing. A strong sagittal crest in the midline of the top of the skull anchored the temporals muscles from the top and the side of the brain case to the lower jaw, and thus moved this massive jaw up and down. The fourth was focused on the large cheek teeth, molars, and premolars. Flaring cheekbones gave Boisei a very wide and dish-shaped face, creating a larger opening for bigger jaw muscles to pass through and support massive cheek teeth from four times the size of a modern human's. Um, that's pretty interesting. Massive cheek teeth. I mean, if that's four times a modern human, I wonder why it went down in size. That's a pretty interesting fact right there. This species has even larger cheek teeth than Robustus, a flatter, bigger brain skull than Athapicus, and the thickest dental enamel of any known early human, which is big. I mean, enamel is a big deal if you can keep your teeth. Cranial capacity is the species suggests is a slight rise in brain size, about 100 cubic centimeters in 1 million years, independent of brain enlargement in the genus Homo. So this is a pretty impressive species, I'd say. Um, so I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty impressed. Like that, got that bigger brain, massive cheek teeth, four times the size of a modern human. I gotta say, Boise, pretty cool looking animal or species right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and put them in A, right there. Yeah, pretty cool species. I mean, pretty impressive stuff right there. So yeah, that's that ranking for that. Up next, we got Paranthropus robustus. Um, it lived in South Africa, and we discovered it in 1938. Um, and sorry, I just lost my train of thought. About 1.8 to 1.2 million years ago. And yeah, so this is an example of a robust Australopithecine. They had very large megadont cheek teeth with thick enamel, and focused their chewing in the back of the jaw, which is pretty interesting because I mean that's kind of where I believe it's developed into modern humans. Large zygomatic arches and cheekbones allowed the passages of large chewing muscles to the jaw and gave robustus individuals their characteristically wide dish-shaped face. A large sagittal crest provided a large area to anchor the chewing muscles to the skull. These adaptations provided robustus with the ability of grinding down tough fibrous foods. It is now known that robust refers solely to the tooth and face size, not to the body size of robustus. So it sounds like this is one of the first species that like was able to really grind down food in a way that species really hadn't before. So pretty interesting to say the least. Kind of an interesting looking fella too, right here. So yeah, I mean these muscles that were able to hook onto the jaw, giving it more more force to chew down and really grind food up to get down and into their stomachs. Pretty impressive. I'm gonna go ahead and put robustus in A once again. Another pretty impressive early species. Next up, we got Homo habilis. Yeah, habilis, I believe it's pronounced. Its nickname is the Handyman. It was discovered in 1960 and believed to live in Eastern Africa and Southern Africa for a million years, from 2.4 to 1.4 million years ago. So a whole million years, pretty impressive. Excuse me. But yeah, pretty impressive. I mean, it's nicknamed the Handyman, which could only be a good thing, really, because the species was thought to represent the first makers of stone tools. Currently, the oldest stone tools are dated slightly older than the oldest evidence of the genus Homo. So the fact that it was the first maker of stone tools is pretty cool. It's about, I mean, like that. Up until this point, we haven't heard anything about tools being used in any of these early species. So I'm gonna go ahead and put Homo habilis up there in the A in S class, um, solely just based because it's ahead of its time. I mean, it's stayed around for a million years, and started using stone tools to be able to access food that they really needed to get to sustain their diet. So up next, we have Homo rudolphinensis. This species was discovered in 1986. Um, I'm just realizing I might not have. Oh, never mind. There it is. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. This discovered in 1986. Lived in Eastern Africa, northern Kenya, possibly northern Tanzania and Malawi. Lived about 1.9 million years ago to 1.8 million years ago. So not a very long time, but still pretty impressive. If you can get a species out there for any amount of time, it's pretty cool. Originally considered to be habilis, which was which the ways in sorry Homo habilis, which I just ranked as number one as an A. It was very close in terms of how they looked and what they could do, what their anatomy was like. The ways in which it differs, though, is in its larger brain case, longer face, and larger premolar uh, teeth. Due to the last two features, though, some scientists still wonder whether the species might be better considered an Australopithecus because although with one with a larger brain. So really not much information on this one from all the digging I did try to do. Um, So, I'm just gonna throw this in C. I know it's getting closer and closer to a modern human, but it sounds like there wasn't much evolution coming from this species. Um, didn't really provide much much significance to this evolutionary timeline that we've been going over here. So yeah, I put that in C. Nothing really impressive there. So up next is Homo erectus, and this one, I mean, there's a lot. I got quite a bit of information on this one. We discovered it in 1891, so really one of the first um, discoveries, one of the earliest on this list. So it lived in northern, eastern, and southern Africa, Western Asia, and East Asia. So really all over the place, and it lived for a long time. It lived for about I want to I want to make sure I'm doing my math here right, but it looks like almost over 1.7 million years. Um, so really quite impressive. So early African Homo erectus fossils are the oldest known early humans to have possessed modern-like body proportions, with relatively elongated legs and shorter arms compared to the size of the torso. These features are considered adaptations to life lived on the ground, indicating the loss of early tree climbing adaptations. So the fact that it's losing its tree climbing abilities, but it's progressing in terms of living on the ground is it's a give and take. And I mean, in terms of getting to a modern human, they're on the right. They're one of the first ones to really get on that right track. They have the ability to walk and possibly run long distances, which is a good like I said. That's the give to the evolution. They that impressive ability of being able to walk and also run for long distances. The appearance of the Homo erectus in the fossil record is often associated with the earliest hand axes and first major innovation in the stone tool technology. So, Homo erectus, S tier. I mean, and I think that's a good place to put it. I mean, starting the axe tool, getting like having those first modern like body proportions, all pretty good stuff coming from Homo erectus. Up next, we have Homo heidelbergensis. This species was discovered um, to this species was discovered in 1908 and lived in Europe, possibly Asia. So our first species that we discovered living in Europe about 700,000 to 200,000 years ago. So pretty interesting that we got our first European um, early ancestors here. So this early human species had a very large brow ridge, a larger brain case, and flatter face than older early human species. It was the first early human species to live in the colder climates. Their short and wide bodies are likely an adaptation to conserving heat. It lived at the time of the oldest definite control of fire and use of wooden spears. So that's really interesting. Like I'm actually taking like a step back right here, just thinking about how like these these species just like learned and adapt and eventually grew and started using tools and making things to hunt and collect food. So really just pretty incredible stuff, honestly, that we're talking about in this class. So yeah, time of the oldest definite control of fire. So controlling fires, I mean, that's like everyone talks about how crazy it is when cavemen get a hold of fire and their eyes light up. Anyways, this early human also broke new ground. It was the first species to build shelters, creating simple dwellings out of wood and rock. Well, pretty impressive stuff coming from this one. I mean, it is getting closer and closer to modern humans. So this isn't a take from Lucy and all those really early species that paved the way for these evolutionary adaptations. But as of right now, I mean, I would argue that this is top at like the best S tier there is really. Um, Homo heidelbergensis, pretty impressive species, especially that it adapted their body to conserve heat. So, all right, the next up we got Homo neanderthalis. Sorry, Neanderthalensens. Anyways, nickname Neanderthal. That's a little easier for me to pronounce. So definitely know that one. The earliest discovered species in 1829, so long time ago. And they lived in Europe and southwestern to Central Asia, about 400,000 to 40,000 years ago. So really getting pretty close to the modern humans here. Anyways, so Neanderthals are our closest extinct human relative, so it goes to show that they're going to have a lot more human traits than almost any of these species that we've gone through. Some defining features of the skull indicate a large middle part of the face, inward cheekbones, and a huge nose for humidifying and warming cold, dry air. Their bodies were shorter and stockier than ours, another adaptation to living in cold environments, but their brains were just as large as ours and often larger, that's an interesting thing to think about. I mean, how come these Neanderthals are getting larger brains than us? That's kind of interesting. Anyway, so proportional to their brawnier bodies, I mean, bigger the brain, the more body they got to take care of. Neanderthals made and used diverse sets of sophisticated tools, controlled fires, lived in shelters, made and wore clothing, which clothing is that's just a whole other step, taking it up another level. Were skilled hunters of large animals, also ate plant foods, and occasionally made symbolic ornamental objects. So that's really interesting, the ornamental objects part. Um, that's really cool. I mean, have significance and find objects that they cared about, which is that's really interesting to think about that it's that happened so even so long ago. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the Neanderthals. God, another S tier right there. Like I said, it just goes to show that these species are like very impressive. Um, so up next we got Homo florensis, nicknamed the Hobbit and discovered in 2003. They lived in Asia approximately 100,000 to 50,000 years ago. Individuals stood approximately 3 feet and 6 inches tall, which is pretty interesting that they have that at like that approximate size, just because there's probably plenty of them out there. They had tiny brains, large teeth for their small size, um, large teeth for their small size, shrugged forward shoulders, no chins, receding foreheads, and relatively large feet due to their short legs. Despite their small body and brain size, Florences, made and used stone tools, hunted small elephants. That's pretty interesting. Large rodents, coped with their predators such as giant Komodo dragons, and may have used fire. So, not like the most impressive species out here. I just I mean, in terms of like what these last species did, like the Neanderthals for example, like just nothing special. I'm gonna go ahead and put them in the B. Even I would put them in C, but the fact that they are hunting and controlling fire, that's a pretty big deal. Or sorry, not fire, but they hunted larger animals, um, and yeah, so pretty impressive stuff. That's all I have. I think um, this is just a cover image, so I didn't miss anything. Um, well, that was it for my species tier ranking of early primates. Um, all really pretty impressive stuff here. Um, like these S tier are really like I mean we got like Lucy up there, but like these earlier like human that like had more human proportions. Unfair to rank them in with all these older other early human or early species just because they were so much closer to being modern humans. So yeah, that is my ranking of around 20 um, early species. So I hope